All right, so we're back here once again on another Overreaction Monday, where we recap the week that was in the National Football League. I got my guys in the building. I'm gonna go with you first, Rob. What's going on, Rob?
Another day. I feel good. I feel optimistic. I think.
I like it.
I don't know. I don't know how I feel today. Well, it's bittersweet. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jeff, what's going on, Jeff?
I'm not gonna lie, man. Like it's an NFL weekend, but you can obviously tell. Like I'm ready for a slightly big game that the Buckeyes have coming up this week. But I'm ready to talk some NFL. I'm ready to talk some NFL.
Yeah, and also, what's going on, Jerry?
Nothing much. Again, another solid NFL weekend, second to last week. I believe the last time we're going to have this be the second to last week because I think they're going to implement the new season next year for being 17 games. So week 18 is coming, fellas.
Week 18, yeah, it will definitely extend into the new year, regardless of how the calendar turns. But yeah, so before we get started tonight, we have two elephants in the room. So first, we want to address the first elephant in the room. So there was a guy, Rob, now to the right of me. If you're looking at this from an angle, I guess some people's right, some people's left. I digress. But anyway, so not Jeff, but Rob came onto the podcast November 23rd. Now this is maybe about like a month ago. So it's been a month ago.
Thanksgiving.
Before Thanksgiving. This was the Thanksgiving. This was when Rob was in quarantine. This is when I remember when Rob was in quarantine. So we're gonna play an audio clip.
So it all started.
So he was prophetic, and one of the things of his Overreaction Monday, which we so eloquently put, he was right on the mark. So we'll get that going, and we'll put that on the screen, and we will put that. Oh, well, okay. There we go. All right. So, Rob, how does it feel to be to make that prediction that the Browns are going to lose in Week 16 to the lowly New York Jets?
So the two things about it is the first one was that I was a lot more confident in that when I said it than going into yesterday. Because the Browns played well against the Ravens. And I even said a couple weeks ago, or maybe even last week, that I was sold on the Browns. Browns are a good team. They can make a run. But I had to stick with my guns. Obviously, going into I still thought that, the Browns, as I said before, the Browns just do Browns things. And that is the ultimate Browns thing that you can do. Is you have a good season. You have a chance to make, because if the Browns would have won, there's no way the Washington-Philly game would be flexing to Sunday night. That would definitely be Pittsburgh and Cleveland, because that would have been a chance for the AFC. And me included, I would rather see, teams with winning records going at it for the division title than, a 6-8 team and whoever else is in it. Basically everybody but the Eagles right now. It feels good. I missed on another one. I didn't think I would miss on it so quickly, though, and we're going to get into that, obviously, in the show that we are. But, yeah, it feels good to get that one. I was more so rooting for the Jets as a team than I usually do Frank Gore. I'm a huge Frank Gore fan. I actually got to meet him once in Canton for the Packers-Colts game preseason, the one that got canceled. I was there for that, got to meet him. But, yeah, it feels good to be right on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about two elephants in the room. So this is a different circumstance. Normally Overreaction Mondays normally it's just a simple day. Normally first round quarterbacks in their second year don't get released on a Monday. Literally the final Monday of the regular season, essentially. So let's address the second elephant in the room. I'm gonna go around the horn with this. First I'm gonna go with you, Jerk. Wrong graphic. Now let's get to the right graphic. So, Jerk, your thoughts on Dwayne Haskins being released by our beloved Washington football team?
I was flabbergasted. First off, as I've been calling them throughout the entire season, the name redacted is what I like referring to them as. Just as a little, for anyone that gets that joke, like that listens to this, good on you, because it's kind of a niche joke of what I'm getting at with calling them that. I was completely stunned. So I had to do first aid training for my job earlier today, like via Zoom. And while I was going through it, I get an alert on my phone, and it said, I look at it, it says Dwayne Haskins. I'm like, hold on. So I had to turn the camera off on the training and look at it. I'm like, what happened? I could not believe it. Like, no matter what your opinion is on Dwayne Haskins, I will allow you guys to go to the outside aspects of what obviously led to this. But just off of talent alone, I know he hasn't been great in his tenure. I think we can all agree for that. He hasn't exactly been great. But for a guy like him, where you think of his rookie season, I don't think it was the perfect situation at all last year, because last year, that's when everything was starting to come out about the team, all the more articles about everything that was happening in the background that got brought up to the forefront this season. The complete instability of Snyder wants him to play, and his head coach, then Jay Gruden, did not want to play him a single snap. Like, all these complicated things, I felt that he deserved a shot going into this year. And Ron Rivera, when he brought in Allen from the Panthers, I'm like, okay, it's a backup, but this is also a guy that Ron Rivera is familiar with. So in my mind, I'm like, well, I had a feeling from the start, like, why do we get the sneaking suspicion? Like, at some point, Haskins is just going to get the plug pulled on him this year. And it happened. And I got to say, from a perspective, I could definitely see people saying he wasn't great, but I don't think he got the fairest shot. I honestly don't think he got that fair shot. And I know with the NFL, at the end of the day, and people say this, like, life's not fair, the NFL's not fair. And I 100% agree. And we were talking about this earlier in the show, and I'll let Jeff go into more detail on it. Maybe the NFL just is not for Haskins, and that's okay. But I think he deserves at least a more than fair circumstance. Like, first of all, being drafted by Dan Snyder almost feels like a kiss of death for your career. Because especially if he wants you, like if he wants you, that almost feels like it's over for you. So he had to deal with that. I don't know, man. I just felt that at the end of the day, they should have just held on to him. I think you could have gotten something back for him in a trade, like even a 7th round pick at this point, like to just release him. And the fact that no one's probably going to pick him up, which means that they're going to have to pay him whatever guaranteed money he has, because it's a 1st round rookie contract. Like, I don't know. I did not like it. I wasn't a fan of it.
And Jeff, since you are a Ohio State Buckeye, your thoughts on your beloved former quarterback?
Yeah, so it was weird, man. So basically, these situations, like I think I look at him more as just an older guy. You know what I mean? Dwayne Haskins, my son, are the same age. You know what I mean? So my knee jerk is, and I tell everybody this all the time. I told you guys before the show, like, you know, there's a big gray area between the NFL and the rest of your life is doomed. Like, there's nothing wrong with, you know, Haskins. Like, we all think that we want to play in the NFL, but we want to, but that's in a magical world. Like, it's not easy. The quarterback position is super, super, super hard. If Dwayne Haskins is a 15th pick, he's a wide receiver. He can string this out for 5 or 6 years. Like, he'll get shipped around. They'll just like, you know, what's the guy's name in New England that everybody gets on? Is it Harry? Is that his last name?
Oh, N'Keal Harry, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
he's a bigger, I don't like to be mean to any of them, but he's produced under standards way more than Haskins had, but he's a receiver and he gets to bounce around. And, you know, Haskins is essentially maybe if not the CEO, the next step down of a company. I don't think he's cut out for it right now. Honestly, when he played at Ohio State, something that we liked about him was he was, he was a free spirit. I don't want to say immature, but you know what I mean? Like, he didn't, like, if you look at the way Justin Fields plays now, this guy like wears this stuff, you know what I mean? Like, like a burden. And Dwayne, you know what I mean? Like, he was like, whatever. But I think that backfired when he got to the NFL. I don't think his life is over or anything like that. I think he will get a chance. And the one thing I could think of, and part of being a Buckeye was I remember when this happened to Chris Carter. Believe it or not, I actually remember it. He kind of ran himself out of Ohio State with some drug issues. Went to the Eagles, couldn't keep his stuff together. Not that Haskins is doing any of that, but I'm saying as far as, and finally the Eagles are like, buddy, I believe it was Buddy Ryan that said, I'm cutting you to essentially to save your life. I don't think Haskins is at that, but it did save Chris's career. And he realized right then, like, oh, this isn't going to be given to me. So there's the chance that Haskins does rally. We don't know. I mean, I'll be honest with you guys. Like, there's a guy on his team named Alex Smith that went through this when he was young, and he didn't get ran off the field, but he was considered just as big a flop. He was never going to make it. Now he stuck it out, and maybe he was more professional than Dwayne. But I mean, these things happen, and then we don't know from now. It might be 6 years from now. This guy shows up, has a 3-year run, or gets somebody. Maybe he gets the Chicago Bears to a 10-8, or 10-6 season, or something like that. But it's not a death sentence. I don't think there's any doubt that he's immature. But I also see these guys like Booger McFarland really took it personal, and I get it. And he's just running on the kid, and they can't handle it, and all this and all that. And I'm like, here's the other side of this. You come out of college, even if that that's not the spot for you and you're not ready for it, of course you're going to go to the draft, and of course you're going to take the money, and of course you're going to go. So let's not be too hard on these kids for being like, oh, no, you should say no, if it's not right, and get your, get your degree in something else. No, of course they're going to go. Like, even if, you know what I mean? Like, they're not failures. We would all do it. Somebody, if Bill Simmons comes to any of us tomorrow, we're going to take the money and go join the Ringer. Am I right? Whether we fail or not, we're not going to say no because I don't know if I'm ready. No,
I'm going to learn on the fly. You'll learn on the fly.
Yeah. Bottom line is,
right.
Kid's life's not over. He needs to grow up like any of us did when we were in our 20s.
Yeah. Rob, this cuts deep, brother. We'll get to the meat and potatoes of it. That's being Washington football guys. Rob, what a day. Your thoughts? Oh, yeah. Okay, hold on, Rob. You're muted.
Rob's got laryngized.
Apologies.
Oh, 30 seconds. Like, what?
Yeah, you're all good, man.
Yeah. All right.
Jerk, you were completely wrong. And I don't like saying it because I love working with you. You come prepared every single week. It makes me
but I can take it.
Try to up my game. I'm just as prepared as you. But you're wrong, and here's why. He's not being cut because of his poor play. He's not being cut because he's a bad football player. He's not being cut because he's a bad quarterback. He's being cut because at the end of the day, he puts not only his life, but others' life, especially his head coach's life, at risk. The first time, what's the saying? Shame, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. He was fined earlier in the season for breaking COVID protocol, for getting his family and friends room at the team hotel. Was fined for that. Now you're at, as Pat McAfee called it, the Booty Cheeks Club earlier this week, and with no mask. And I don't care that you're at a strip club. Strip clubs are strip clubs. Men are men. It is what it is. It's being without a mask when your head coach literally just got done earlier this season with chemotherapy, with cancer treatments. He was getting chemo treatment at halftimes of games, but you can't be responsible enough to wear a mask when you're at the strip club or wherever you go. So to say that he didn't get a fair shot, yes and no. You did touch on it. Being drafted by Dan Snyder, especially when he wants you, is the kiss of death. Same thing with RG3. But he had his chance to learn from somebody who was pretty much in his shoes, who the first 5 or 6 years of his career was being labeled the biggest bust of all time. And not only in that draft in 2005, you had Aaron Rodgers fall all the way to 24. So for all that time, once Aaron Rodgers got the job and was winning Super Bowls and was making Pro Bowls, you had people saying, well, the Niners could have taken Aaron Rodgers. Now you're stuck with this bum, which he was drafted to a dysfunctional franchise too. Alex Smith was in San Francisco at the time. So, and now same thing with Dwayne Haskins and Daniel Jones. Now looking back at that the part at the bowling alley where he was charging people to be there with him, it looks bad now. His little smirk, it all looks bad, but he had the chance to learn from a pro's pro in Alex Smith. He had the chance to learn from a professional in Case Keenum. Now, given Case Keenum he's no Hall of Fame quarterback, and outside his 1 year in Minnesota, he's a journeyman quarterback. That's what he is. But still, at the same time, I remember last year or earlier this season that there were times where Case Keenum was on one side of the bench, looking at the tablet, talking with the quarterback's coach or the OC, talking with Kevin McConnell, and Dwayne Haskins clear on the other side of the sideline. Like, you should be in there. You should be there wanting to learn, wanting to get better, because Dwayne Haskins just thought this whole time that everything was given to him. Best player probably on his football team. Obviously had a tremendous season at Ohio State. And I think Pat McAfee said it today that he got his first taste of reality today, of being told, hey, you're not good enough for this. And again, I think it was more so of you're putting people at risk and you're not what we want around this organization, more so than it is a skill, but also his skill set clearly did not help it. His struggles over the 2 weeks. I'm hurt. I was really rooting for him. As you all know, 6 days ago, 7 days ago, I professed he was our franchise quarterback for the next 15, 20 years. He was our Tom Brady because of what I saw the second half of the Seattle game, but clearly it's not it. But I do wish him well. I do hope he lands somewhere on the AFC side of the league so we don't have to face him that much. But I think he does have the skill set. I do hope he succeeds wherever he goes.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point, Rob, you made about health and all that. I think that's a huge valid point. And if that's part of the reason, I respect that out of Washington.
I think ultimately it is the reason.
Yeah, I really agree with everything you said. Really.
Yeah. And I'm, kind of almost to a point where I'm gonna piggyback on you as well, where I do wish Dwayne luck going forward, but like you said, it's a culmination of events. To me, when you can get away with making mechanical issues, this, that, and third, and kind of having those, you can be coached, but when you're at a point in his career where he's he becomes a distraction on and off the field, that's when the problem happens.
Yeah.
And the thing is, and what's weird about it is the timing. To me, him being released, as I alluded earlier, as we teased it, the last Monday of the regular season, which is kind of one of the things where we kind of, even yesterday after the game, we were like, well, he probably will never play for this team. Not to think in less than 24 hours, he'll be off this team. And this is one of those things where this is a cautionary tale for all guys going forward. That, and a lot of it too, I think, attributes to his body language off the field. And I'm gonna tell you one thing. Like yesterday, and one thing he has to learn when he's a captain of the team, you have to stay engaged. And actually, to your point, when you said last year with Case Keenum, the same thing go in the same issues. Even in this regime, he was doing the same thing. Like yesterday, when he got benched, he wasn't encouraging Tyler Heineke. He did the little fake on the field thing on fourth down, which was really contrived and fake. But you can see on the sidelines, he looked despondent. Hell, at one point, he was resting his eyes. I'm not even going to say he slept. He rested his eyes. And you're like, how? Like, and like you said, and even to the point where the strip club situation, you got to understand, why in the hell are you going somewhere like this in a pandemic? Especially when you have the conference championship on the line. What if he would have came back and when we had a situation like Cleveland where you got a unit infected, then guess what? That's going to fall back on you. You just got lucky that you didn't COVID or get someone sick in that regard. You have to, and when you're especially in this spot, the biggest moment of your career where you can literally turn this around, you did something idiotic like that. And like you said, Chuck, it's like you can give. The thing is, I understand like the whole chances and stuff. He had an opportunity, he had a golden gift because they should have released him last week. But because they were so devoid of the quarterback depth, he stayed. Ron Rivera gave him another shot.
Yeah.
He should have been cut last week because at the end of the day, didn't go into his favor where he got some other people sick, because that could have been a huge issue going the game. We've already was a short on depth anyway, but just imagine if that would have been compacted with it. And and the thing is, and people say, you know, why you like Chase Young? You know what I really fell in love with Chase Young? When he was injured against Cleveland. He was on that sideline very active in people's ears, and he was just talking to people and just riling those guys up.
Yeah.
When Dwayne was healthy scratches, what was he?
Yeah. I wanted to run that by you guys. I'm kind of glad you both touched on it. Is there a chance that the reason they released him immediately today was to avoid a Cleveland incident, because they know he's going to go do something, we'll just call it stupid, you know what I mean? Like, and then he gets caught in a club or something. Is there a chance that they're like, no, you're not going to ruin our chance of the playoffs by coming to the quarterback room? Then now all of a sudden we've got a wide receiver, you know, playing quarter. I'm asking the question. I don't know if that's true.
You know
what? That's a realistic question.
It's a legit
right?
possibility.
And you know what it really also boils down to? You get rid of distraction. Today is Monday. We're probably going to talk about it tonight, tomorrow, maybe ad nauseum. When them guys go back to the facility on Wednesday, it's all business. That's the thing. Even if Dwayne didn't go back to the strip club this week or whatever, little stuff that happened this week. What happened yesterday? With there's rumors of how Dwayne bolted, with street clothes. Morgan Moses trying to chase him in the parking lot with his uniform on, trying to get him to come back and to stay in the stadium. But no, he wants to do the press at his house. He wanted to finish the press conference at his house. So that's when I'm like, there's so many issues with that. So it's like he becomes a distraction. When you're at this point, your third string quarterback is an issue. You gotta cut your losses. And
we know Ron Rivera don't play. To his credit, that's what I like about him. His whole career as a coach, I watched him as a player, and I think you nailed it. Like, if you're going to release him next week, just do it. Be done with it. It doesn't sound like the team dislikes him, but it doesn't sound like anybody is like, there's not camp.
They want to keep him.
No,
because you guys are the Washington fans, but I didn't hear any outcry of like, that's my quarterback. I mean, I'm just being honest. Like, it's immature. He's not a professional, and these guys are out there. I'm sure. It appears that Terry McLaurin is a professional. Like, he works at his craft. So how do you reward that guy by saying, this other guy can stay too, just because of the position he plays? I don't disagree with the decision at all. I think, actually, I even tweeted out today, I thought he got a completely fair shake. Every time it came back up, they gave him another shot to take the job. I don't think they buried him. I think they gave him every shot to take the job, and I think they would have been completely happy with him being successful.
Yeah, and that's why Ron didn't release him, on Monday or Tuesday whenever the story broke, is one, because we needed a quarterback. Yeah. Alex Smith clearly was not going to go. Or at the time it was maybe he would, but most likely he wasn't going to.
Correct.
And we hadn't seen what Heineken could do, or Heineke. I'm sorry, whatever his name.
You got to call him Heineken, man. You got to call him Heineken.
That's your boy. You, baby. ODU.
He's going to earn that nickname. He's going to earn that as his official nickname if they win this Sunday.
He has to. But yeah, you had Heineke, who you didn't know what you had in him, seventh or undrafted out of Old Dominion. And then you had Steven Montez, practice squad from Colorado, who ironically liked a tweet from somebody saying Dwayne Haskins sucked after the Seattle game. Yeah. Which I thought was
I didn't even see that.
Kind of sus. But no, so yeah, he couldn't afford to release him because Dwayne Haskins. I think if Dwayne Haskins had the same second half against Seattle that he did as in the first half, he probably would have been cut. Yeah. But I think because he saw Ron, he showed a little bit, saying, "Okay, maybe he'll get it eventually, and he can help us." Because Carolina's not a good team. They're struggling. They have their issues. Of course, no CMC hurts them even more. We had a good opportunity.
That's almost like running backs.
Yeah.
We had a good chance to go in and beat a bad team, which at the time of which could have been, which eventually was a potential division clinching win.
Yeah.
And he didn't get it done, and that mixed in with, you're clearly not a captain, you're clearly not a leader, and we touched on it a little bit ago about Chase Young, and I even tweeted yesterday during the game, the thing I love about Chase Young is that any big play, that any big run or deep pass that gets completed, or huge important first down that we make, you see Chase Young there in the frame, hyping him up. He's hitting helmets, patting them on the back. He's there. He's the leader. And the same thing with Heineken yesterday. When Dwayne Haskins, I thought it was weird too. I thought for a second, why are you putting in Dwayne Haskins on a 4th and I think it was almost 4th and 20? And after that holding pen, I was like, why are you putting him back in? That doesn't make sense. Then I was like, oh, okay, he's dapping him up. Cool. And at the time I thought, okay, he's showing leadership. Cool. I like it. And then I kept watching it. And then I finally realized Chase Young was already out there. I said, oh, he's just trying to be like Chase Young at this point. Right. He's just saying, okay, I'm clearly not a leader, so I got to do what this guy does so I can pretend to be a leader.
And speaking of that, Rob, because we're going to bring Steven in the fray. Before we bring Steven in, now notice, remember when Joe Burrow got hurt? The same thing happened. Remember, because Dwayne kind of, he did a little paddle walk. Once, because Chase and Terry was out there. Yep. Who comes after them? Yep. You're right.
Well, and one thing I noticed clear right after the play was on that 4th down at the end of halftime, I think, or at the end of the second quarter, somewhere around there. Dwayne got sacked on that 4th down, and the 2 linemen that were closest to him turned around and started walking back to the sideline.
That says a lot. Too.
That says a lot.
Yeah, and I don't want to make us a Haskins podcast, but let's remember that Haskins, everything he has is because Joe Burrow broke his thumb in the spring.
Yep.
Right.
And Haskins did a great job with the opportunity. That's essentially why I like the kid. But let's remember that him and Burrow, that was a weird. I remember
competition.
I lived in Columbus at the time when that happened, and I was like, okay,
Haskins still good, and Haskins made the best of it, and almost
so did Joe Burrow.
And so we'll bring Steven in. I see we're gonna bring Steven in. There we go.
Man, that was cool.
There we go.
Hey,
Steven.
Hey, we already talked about the Steelers, man. You missed it.
No, you didn't. I was listening to the show. You lied.
He's been here the whole time.
I was here the whole time.
Yeah. So before we go to the next topic, I want to get your quick thought, Steven, on Dwayne Haskins being released.
Yeah, there's not really too much else that I want to touch on. I've been listening to you guys, getting the kiddos down and everything. But one thing that wasn't touched on, I've heard kind of being circulated in other media outlets, right, is, the fact, other elephant in the room, Dwayne Haskins is a black quarterback in the NFL, right? Like, we all know that. And, just we see now, a lot of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now are African-American quarterbacks, right? And, it feels like there's been, a large, I don't even want to call it movement, just recognizing talent, is the best way that I can, say it. And I'm just curious now, because typically what you'll see, and Coach, you kind of turned me on to this, is the wording in the draft process that's used for, African-American quarterbacks compared to, the white ones. And maybe you can speak on this a little bit better than I could, right? But, I'm just kind of concerned, do you guys think that this causes some sort of setback in the draft process for other African-American quarterbacks or not?
Not necessarily. Not because what's so funny? Because the book on Dwayne was kind of, the thing what really got me with him, when Adrian Peterson was saying he doesn't have a great grasp of the playbook. Now, like you said, that's kind of one of those kind of verbiages that you hear, kind of that I call it innuendo words when it comes to scouting reports. So, and but Adrian Peterson said that last year, and that's what opened my eyes versus somebody who just sit down and write scouting reports versus somebody who sees him every day, who works out with him every day. That was telling to me.
Yeah, it probably tried to serve as a mentor to some degree, right? Because AP is one of the elder statesmen in the in the game right now. So
But
when he
but
said
something
that.
to recognize that, once again, not to steer this sideways, but there is the factor that it is something to look at, because when this happens to a young black quarterback, it could be scrutinized different. Like, we may not, they may not, but that is a factor to it. Like, who was the first comparison? Like, almost everybody made
Jamarcus Russell.
and it has nothing to do with skin color, but it is there. That is a real thing. When you've got guys that, like, we're always going to talk about it. Like, the first thing that's going to be brought up when this starts, Steven, you're not wrong about this. Here in about 3 weeks, this is going to start building. And there is a different amount of pressure, on that particular position.
Yeah, because football for college is almost up, right? And
yeah,
this is just something that I'm curious about and wanted to get y'all's take on, because I've heard other former players, obviously that are African American, that are, in places like ESPN and Fox Sports and stuff like that. That's something that they, bring up quite often. And I saw a couple heads shaking no, and that's fine. Like, I don't feel one way or the other about it. Because again, I'm kind of, maybe naive to the fact, but Coach kind of turned me on to this, a couple months ago, and I was just curious to get y'all's take on it.
Like, I don't know how it's going to go, but it's going to be a factor. And the fact of the matter is, here's what people are going to bring up. They're going to bring up these retreads that have been around for 13 years and have been terrible the whole time. They're like, but wait a minute, Dwayne gets cut. Like, I don't know which way it's going to go, but it is going to be a part of the conversation.
I think it's just one of the things where you have to kind of, you can't ignore the red flags. There was red flags with Jamarcus Russell. There was red flags even like when Urban Meyer says that this kid even though he's one of the best quarterbacks we've had, but he still need to be more mature.
Yeah.
And Urban Meyer is Jeff, you can speak to this. When he's coaching a quarterback, he's with him. They're kind of glued to the hip.
They are partnership. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's kind of curious, because when he's drafted to Washington at that time, who was their head coach, Rob?
Jake Gruden. I don't know why you got it. We'll talk about
No, I'm not throwing shots. I mean, you would know that. I'm genuinely
it was Jake Gruden.
Oh, okay, right. And so if you could compare the relationship that Gruden and Haskins had compared to what we saw in college, was there a bigger chasm there than what we may have really been scrutinizing? Like, did that exist? Because you guys are the fans. I'm genuinely asking. I'm not throwing shots. I know I have a tendency to do that, but I'm just this is a fair question.
I mean, the thing is, I don't really think there was really a relationship, because I think for the simple fact that no one really wanted him. That was really more of Snyder's doing, where I think, and that's why a part of me is like, you feel for Dwayne in a sense, but in the same token, it is what it is, where, and the thing is, he should know, like, especially with this new regime, you got to be a Boy Scout. Mm-hmm. You can't just be doing nilly-willy stuff and expecting the same results.
Yeah.
But the thing is, that goes to, like, we talked about this, and I don't know if we talked about this on this show or whatever, but it goes to the fact where now you got a guy like a Ron Rivera who has that power to do these type of things, because he said, hey, can I release him? He said, sure, you can release him. Yeah. Because that's what has to happen.
Yeah, I think it was the right thing to do. I will say that.
Absolutely. Because to me, if you're not gonna be, if you're gonna give Coach Rivera the reins, let him have the reins, let him control this team, and he's just not a good fit for this Ron Rivera regime. He'll be a great fit somewhere else, but not here.
What this reminds me of is when McDermott took over in Buffalo, and there were a lot of character issue players that were there, and he let those guys, not Tyrod Taylor in particular.
But just
there were several players on that team that caused a little bit of a ruckus, and they were carryovers from the Rex Ryan era, right? So McDermott comes in, and he starts moving like high caliber. Well, I say high caliber, right? But big names that we would typically want on a football team, but McDermott comes in and makes those character changes, and look at where Buffalo is now. And I kind of look at Ron Rivera in that same light.
I think that's a good comparison.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, and so fellas, let's get into week 16 in the NFL, man. So I'm gonna go around the horn. Go with you first, Jeff. Your biggest winner this week.
Oh, good. I get to go first, so I always got a list of them in case you guys don't tell me. This was a tough one because there were some big winners this week. I